Welcome to Loco, Gringo, Mexico, the place where we transform a tourist into a traveler, because you deserve to see more of the world than just what's in a guidebook. Each week, we talk with amazing locals who know the Riviera Maya and Yucatan like only a local can, and get them to share their tips and insights on the local scene, culture, and cuisine from a local's perspective. So, grab a comfy chair, and let's get the show going.
Hi, my name's Kay Walton, here with Loco Gringo, and we're really thrilled that you could join us today. Well, it's a real treat for me and an honor to have this fabulous woman that I know speak with us today. She has lived in the Cancun Riviera Maya area. She was a social media manager for the Sunset Resorts. She's a contributor to the Huffington Post blog, and one of her biggest accomplishments and some of her most admirable work is her blog, The Sober Senorita. If I can introduce to you my dear friend, Kelly Fitzgerald. Well, I have a great friend of mine, Kelly Fitzgerald, and she's used to live here in Cancun. Now, Kelly, you're originally from Pennsylvania, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. From the suburbs.
Where in PA?
From the suburbs of Philadelphia, a little town called Royersford.
And now, how did a Philly girl wind up in Cancun? And when did you move down? It was early 2000, yeah?
So I moved down actually 2009, but my first time in Cancun was 2008, the spring break season. And that's how I kind of got there, because I had just graduated college in December of 2007. I was looking for something to do that was fun and different. And I had traveled on spring break my junior and senior years of college, and I went to Acapulco one time. We were actually supposed to go to Cancun, and then the hurricane hit, Hurricane Wilma, so we switched to Acapulco. And I loved Mexico from the first time I ever visited. It was awesome. And so I also saw that these spring break trip companies, they sell the trips to college kids, which I had interacted with the companies that do that by buying trips. And then I sold some trips when I was in my senior year at college. And then I saw that they have jobs where they send staff to work during spring break and to all these exotic locations, Cancun included. So after I graduated, I was like, this is perfect. It's a spring job. It's only a month and a half during spring break season. They send you to work. They pay for your flight and your food and your room and board. And I was like, this is awesome. So I applied to work for one of these spring break companies. They hired me and they sent me to Cancun.
Now, did you have intentions of moving to Cancun, or just going to stay for the season and then leave?
I never had intentions of moving to Cancun. I never thought that's how much I would love it, but that's what turned out to happen. But no, I just planned to go for that month and a half while they paid for my trip and work and enjoy. And 2008, I really loved it. And I was so sad to go home after that month and a half. And I was like, okay, next year I'm doing it again. So the following year, which was 2009, I did the same thing. I went and worked spring break again for a month and a half. And while I was there, I met lots of different people who live there all year round, people from all over the world, girls from Australia, friends from England, Canada, it has people from everywhere, and they made their lives there. And I was like, wow, this is doable and really cool. I want to do it. So I had planned to then come back after spring break. I would go home after spring break and then come back again in the summer. And I had planned on getting an apartment with a girl I met on spring break who also worked spring break, and she was from Chicago. And we were like, okay, we'll get an apartment together. We'll get jobs at a hotel and it'll be great. And she actually ended up backing out because it was that whole time period where the swine flu took place, and a lot of hotels were out of work, and there was a lot of people that weren't working in Cancun and stuff because that whole craziness took place. But I still went, and I went by myself, and I just had contacts that I had met on spring break, acquaintances. And I just stayed with one of my friends, and they had an extra room, and I worked for the same company that does the spring break trips, but they also do summer break trips. So I worked for them for my first few months in Cancun, and then I ended up doing lots of other things the years that I was there, selling vacation packages, working in call centers, eventually social media and writing. And it was awesome.
Wow, that's amazing because I didn't know all of your background because some of this happened before I had met you, and so I didn't realize that you had done so much work with spring breaks and the vacation industry that early on.
Yeah.
Now, you were here. Now, how long did you stay here in Cancun? I mean, when did you go back? I know you're in Miami now, so did you stay here until what, 2013, or what? Did you go back sooner?
So I was there. I got there in the summer, like May of 2009. There was a 10-month period where I came home to Philly to work because I couldn't like find a steady job at that time, and that was in like 2010 to 2011. So I was home for like 10 months, but I would fly back every month to visit my friends and like the boyfriend that I was seeing at the time. We stayed together and did long distance. And then I ended up moving back in October of 2011, and I was there until May of 2014. So I've just been living here in Florida for a year and a half now. And we actually live in Cape Coral, which is a little bit outside of Miami on the other coast.
Oh, okay. I've heard of it. I just wasn't I'm not familiar with that whole part of Florida. Miami, I know, though. So once you were in social media and everything, I mean, so I saw you and I was like, oh my God, I know this woman, Kelly Fitzgerald. I see this sober senorita. How did that start? And I see you writing for the Huffington Post too. Can you tell me how all that kind of evolved for you?
Yeah. Well, it was completely crazy how this all happened. So how do I make this long story short? Well, in Cancun, I liked to party a lot, and drinking has always been a big interest of mine for years and years and years. And in spring of 2013, I decided to quit drinking. It was a very huge life decision for me. I was kind of hit my bottom after traveling to the Dominican Republic with a few girlfriends of mine from high school for one of their bachelorette parties, and I just was feeling emotionally and physically drained, and so I made the decision to quit drinking. And I stayed sober I'm now 2.5 years sober, but I was staying sober and also working at Sunset World at the same time. And I was writing a lot of blogs at work for work, and my coworker was like, you should write a blog, like a personal blog. And as I'm sure you know, there's lots of women that we know that write blogs in Cancun, the expat women that write about being an American or Canadian woman living in Cancun and the trials and tribulations of that. So I was like, sure, why not? I'll start one. And I wanted to incorporate the fact that I was sober, this new way of life that I was living. So my sister helped me think of a name that was like, how to incorporate Spanish or Mexico and being sober. So she came up with the name, The Sober Senorita. And so I started my blog, and that was in January of 2014 is when I started the blog. And I started writing about just living in Cancun, what it's like to live in Mexico, and how things are very different from the United States, and places I would go visit and travel to around the Yucatan Peninsula. And I didn't really talk anything about being sober. I just had the name, The Sober Senorita, and no one really ever asked me about it. I guess I wasn't to the point where I wanted to like bring that up and talk about why that was my blog name until I hit 1 year sober, which was May 7th, 2014. And I wrote a post about it on my blog. And it was 1 year without alcohol was what it was called. And I kind of just made this confession, like I had been not abstaining from drugs and alcohol for the last year, and how great my life had gotten since I stopped. And I kind of wasn't sure who was going to read it. I didn't have that many blog followers at the time. And I just kind of wanted to get that off my chest. And it ended up being very popular, and a lot of people could relate. And I ended up getting an email from the Huffington Post, and they said, well, we read your blog and we really like it. Can we republish it on the Huffington Post? I was like, oh my gosh, sure. This is crazy. And so they republished it, and then it pretty much went completely viral. It's been republished in like 5 different languages. It's been all over the internet. Countless other pages have picked it up. So, and it's still going around. I still get emails and messages about that article today, and it's almost a year and a half later since I wrote it, and now I'm 2.5 years sober. So that was like the start of that, and now I majority of the time write about sobriety on my blog, but I also still write about Mexico and travel a lot too.
It's a very interesting angle, sobriety in Mexico, because I mean, when we talk about Mexico, some of the common iconic things of Mexico: tequila,
Yep, mm-hmm.
Corona, Dos Equis, spring
break
break partying, happy hour, and so what are some of the challenges that you've experienced or that you hear of other people experiencing when you're inundated with this is what vacation or Mexico seems to be, is about the party?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, well, obviously I noticed right away when I made the decision to stop drinking. I was still living in Cancun and did live there for a whole year sober. And it was hard. I mean, I began to realize how everything revolved around drinking. And more so in Cancun, I just believe it's a tourist destination, number one. So I guess people on vacation are looking to let loose, and that involves drinking for a lot of people. But I also think that, it's not just Cancun. I think society in general is revolved a lot around drinking, and a lot of advertising is around drinking. So it's not just Cancun, but I mean, it's hard. I think that what I realized was that those other years I was living there, mostly my life revolved around drinking and partying. And I didn't even realize all the beautiful things that Mexico and that area, Cancun and the Yucatan Peninsula, have to offer. History, culture, food. I did more in that one year that I was sober there and traveled to more places and saw more Mayan archeological sites than I had in the previous 4 years that I was living there. So it was amazing in that sense.
Now, can you tell me, so you now that you've been sober, congratulations on your accomplishment. It's great. Is now you've had this new experience and are looking at Mexico in a different way. Do you have some favorite spots? I mean, places that you just tell people that you say, hey, you really need to go and experience this to really get the true flavor and essence of what Mexico is. Can you share with us what are some of your favorite places?
Wow, there's so many. I definitely always say Chichen Itza because it's just breathtaking. And Tulum, I mean, that cliff view overlooking the ocean where the Mayan archeological site is just, it's like a dream. And, I encourage people to try local restaurants in downtown Cancun. I always say, don't be afraid to explore and don't just stay in the hotel zone, because some of the best tacos and tortas I've had are in downtown Cancun. I used to live in Super Manzana 20, and there was a little truck every single weekday morning that makes tortas de cochinita, this guy. And it was right in front of the Oxo on, what's that road? I'm forgetting the location now, but behind Tulum and in front of, next to Chedraui by there. And this guy made just amazing tortas de cochinita, and I took them for granted. I would buy them 2 or 3 times a week, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, I would die to have one of those right now. So I often recommend people to branch out, and don't be scared to go down to downtown. Try the food, try stuff you never had before. Before I moved to Mexico, I thought that Mexican food was hard shell tacos or Taco Bell or burritos. And there's so much more than that. There's elotes, esquites, mole is my favorite thing. And so I always recommend that to people. Agua de horchata, never heard of that before I moved to Cancun, and I love it. So as far as food, I guess I'm talking a lot about food, but
that's okay. Everybody, food makes a trip. It helps define what a country and a culture is. So, it's great to share those things. And I mean, cochinita and agua de Jamaica, it's all wonderful things that, coming from the US or Canada or many places in the world, you'd never even hear about.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so glad that I was able to live there and get the full experience. So yeah, I mean, I think there's different places like Xel-Ha, the beautiful, park, and they have a lot to offer. And just, I would say, go beyond Cancun and explore those places.
Now, have you traveled a lot within the rest of the country in Mexico? I know your fiance is Mexican, right?
Yes.
And is he from Quintana Roo or from another part of the country?
He was born in Mexico City, but he moved with his parents to Cancun when he was like 12. So he basically grew up in Cancun, but he is originally from Mexico City, and we actually went there. That's one of the trips we took when I was in my first year sober before we moved to Florida. We went to Mexico City. He showed me like the apartment that he grew up in and like where he went to elementary school, and we went to the Ruinas de Teotihuacan. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but
Yep, you are.
and that was amazing too. Oh my gosh, breathtaking, just like a spiritual experience, really. And climbing those, and I think, I don't know, being sober for me, it was just, I don't know, it was very spiritual to climb those pyramids and stuff. But and we went to the markets, the tianguis, and we rode the metro, and that was so cool. And I've been to Merida and Cozumel. I went to Mahahual, and all the cities that are just below Cancun, Akumal, Playa del Carmen, Tulum.
And does one stick out as your favorite?
They're all so different. I feel like I appreciate them all. I guess I love Tulum. I love that it's like a hippie beach town, and everyone's riding their bikes, and it just has beautiful palapas and hotels that, turn their electricity off at 11 p.m. sometimes to save that power. I like that feel, and that's very relaxing. I mean, I don't know if I could live there all the time because I'm very connected to the internet and probably use a lot of power, but it's nice to unplug there. And Merida was very like historical, lots of great architecture that was just beautiful and so much different from Cancun. So I really liked that too. And I haven't been there since, I don't know, I think I went there in like 2010. So I should go back sometime soon.
It's changed a lot. It's a great city, and I'm due for a trip back there myself. And I always say, oh, I'm going to go this weekend. But then come the weekend, it's like, no, I'm not going to go. I'm just too tired,
Yeah, and so Fernando and I, our next trip, we want to go to Guadalajara because we're interested in seeing that city. So that would be something we're going to plan for our future.
I've heard great things about Guadalajara. And the other thing, if you want a totally spiritual experience, have you been to the ruins of Palenque in Chiapas?
I have not yet. I've heard of that, but I have not been
plan
there.
a few days there. Super magic there.
Cool.
Very big magic there. So let me ask you this, Kelly. What do you have some tips for people who are working, they're sober, they're working at it, or they're working the steps on how they can enjoy their vacation with their friends or their families, and how to deal with some of the pressures that may be there to either indulge or just how they can keep their strength and resolve to stay sober.
Yeah, I know, like, it's hard. It's especially hard on vacation and all-inclusive resorts where they want to offer you are shots and cocktails. But the good thing about all-inclusive is, like, they will make you mocktails. I mean, I've gotten some very good smoothies, fruit smoothies, and other kinds of non-alcoholic mojitos, and so that helps me a lot because I still have the cute little drink with the mint leaves inside and like a lime and with a straw, and you still feel like you're included. So that helps me a lot. Or even like fresh coconut water out of the coconut, drinking it with a straw. I love that. And so having those other options is good. So asking what they have to offer, I always do that. And for people working the steps, I mean, looking for English-speaking meetings in Cancun, which there are some. I know that there is one every morning at 8 a.m. in downtown Cancun. And there's even a website that is specifically just for English-speaking meetings. And I don't know if I have the address right, but I believe it's AA meeting in English, Cancun.com, but don't hold me to that. But you can Google it and it'll come up, and it has directions how you can get there. If you're not sure about if you can get there, you can contact someone and they'll help you get there. So there are resources available, and and someone can always reach out to me if they're unsure or they need any other tips, I'd be happy to talk to them. But, just having in your head a plan, what drinks to ask for that are non-alcoholic. And, if you're not feeling comfortable somewhere, being able to leave, knowing how to get back to your hotel and getting to a place where you feel comfortable. That always helps me. If I am ever, because, I have gone out to the nightclubs with my fiance and it's like 2 a.m. and I'm not drinking and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go home now. So I always have that exit strategy. I have a way to go, a safe way to get home when I want to leave, because I know that, when I want to go, I want to go. And that is part of me sticking to my sobriety and leaving a place that I, no longer feel comfortable or I'm done hanging out for the night. So that's what helps me.
A lot of the people who are listeners are going to be more parents and things like that. Any specific tips for people who are in spring break and just to know what to kind of, who may not be quite there yet, to be in sober and how to manage spring break and not to drink themselves silly?
It can be crazy. Spring break, you can find as many parties as you want. So I would try to limit yourself. If you're looking to limit or moderate, just know that you don't have to go all out on your first day or spend all your time in one place, and alternate that with, a relaxing beach day. Or just drink water, I mean, obviously in tourist locations, especially Cancun and especially on spring break, there's always alcohol available, but there's also always water or soda, or whatever. So if you still need that drink in your hand to be a part of your friends or crowd or whatever, there are other options. You don't have to directly go to that alcoholic drink. So I would recommend that. And I mean, just taking a day off here and there if you want to pace yourself. But I mean, there are, I think, also, depending on what hotel you stay at during spring break, some are crazier than others. The Oasis is like basically the spring break headquarters. So if you're not looking to get extremely crazy, I would recommend possibly looking at a different hotel. That's my recommendation.
Well, that's great. So Kelly, people want to find you. Where can they connect with you on the internet?
You can connect with me on my website. It's sobersenorita.com. It's SOBERSENORITA.com. And you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @KellyFitz11. And you can also find my Facebook page, which is The Sober Senorita.
Excellent. Well, Kelly, hey, I hope that you will come back and talk to us again soon, and that we have maybe can share a agua de coco or something underneath a palm tree sometime when our schedules match up and we can be in the same place at the same time, which would be wonderful.
Yes, I would love that.
Well, great. Kelly, thanks so much. I'll talk to you again real soon. And please, guys, everybody visit Kelly's website, thesobersenorita.com. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank you for joining our podcast today. I hope you found the information that Kelly had to share inspiring and informational. If you have anything you'd like to hear us talk about in future podcasts, please email me, askkay@locogringo.com. You can always ping us on Twitter or Facebook as well. Until next week, hasta la vista.
Thanks for listening. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe. For links, show notes, and more information, head on over to locogringo.com or give us a call toll-free at 800-478-0081.
Porque se tragó la luna, estaba enferma la rana. Su madre soba que soba, dedos de pluma la panza. Pensó ranita que luna era una toronja blanca. Y aunque la luna es de leche, la leche estaba cortada. Croa, croa, dedos de pluma. Croa, croa, dedos de agua. Croa, croa, dedos de pluma.